Welcome back to the Building Your Life podcast. My name is Doug Sandler from Turnkey Podcast Productions, along with the infamous, we called him famous last week, but I think it actually is infamous. I mean, he's legendary in my mind. John Browning, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah. So yeah, good to be here this week, and good to see you again. We've got going to talk about this topic that a lot of people say, "Oh, it's easy. Why don't you do it? You're silly if you don't do it." Um, and it's this topic of budgeting, and it's not a four-letter word. You just mentioned that to me before we got on here, and it's not actually.
No,
It's
it's
not.
totally not. Literally
Yeah.
and figuratively, not a four-letter word. I always equated, whenever I spoke to people about budget, and I've been a guy that's been following a budget since 1986. I graduated from the University of Maryland, and I remember putting down on a piece of paper, like drawing the like graph paper before spreadsheets. I think I had my Mac 512K at the time. It was the first Macintosh computer that came out. But before all of that happened, I was outlining it on graph paper. I didn't think that a budget was handcuffs. I felt like the budget was freedom. For me, I was able to write out the things that generally I spent every month on groceries, on insurance, on going beer money, whatever it is, entertainment, miscellaneous, rent, all of the things. And I found that I usually was within the budget every month. And then I could even have a little bit left over. And knowledge is power. So the fact that I did it, when you do 2, 3 months in a row, it's like now you start to see the pattern that you have. After you've done it for a year, you have 12 months of this pattern. And then after 2 years, you have 24 months. And then it just takes on a life of its own. So I never equated a budget with handcuffs. It always meant freedom to me. I know where my money is going. Is there some? Am I the weird one here? Because I'm not a guy that's a spreadsheet guy. I'm just a guy that really likes to know where things are going.
It is freedom, and so few people believe me when I say that. So I'm glad you said it. I have to use that here. Here's somebody else who will tell you it's actually freedom,
It
right?
is.
And but I don't want to make it seem like it's easy, especially if you've been going along for quite some time without really a budget, and you just kind of look at the end of the month and you're like, I'm running out of money before I run out of month, right? And it's always a stressor. For one thing, it's just stressful. It raises your blood pressure. But
Well,
the
what?
you know the
Yeah, again.
the episode that we did with Bridget Hom, we talked a little bit about mindset and the freedom that you get when you begin to consciously and very purposefully change your mindset, right? And changing your mindset that budgeting is not a four-letter word, and while it's not easy, it's also not hard. Does
Totally
that
not
make
hard.
sense?
The,
Yeah.
the best place to start with a budget, if you've never done one before, and if you're writing checks or you're paying cash, is just keep track of where the money's going over the course of even a week. And then you can do it over 2 weeks, and then you'll have 4 weeks in no time. But if you look at your checking account, and if you have a debit account attached to your checking account, if you just look and see at the end of a month, even without a budget, where your money is going, that is like the framework by which you can start your entire budget. Oh, I spent $20 at the grocery store that week. Oh, I spent $50 the next week. Oh, I spent, $60 going out to dinner. And now you have a grocery and a eating out budget. And now you have a beer budget. And you don't have to have these categories that are all rent, insurance, the things that everybody thinks are in a budget. Just come up with the regular stuff that you're spending money on. It's a great starting point just to head over to your debit or your checking account.
Yeah, it is. And that's what makes it not hard anymore is you have it all there. And a lot of times you can export it into a spreadsheet, or if you don't like spreadsheets, you can get like mint.com is a great spot to go. We have a tool that I can send you. It's on an Excel spreadsheet. It's again, but I've been through this enough to know that the people who don't do a budget, who they usually are,
No, who are they?
they're the high income earners.
Really? So,
Yes. And
y-
yeah.
I also, yeah, I agree with you. I think that a high income earner may feel like they have more money than month, and a budget creator is people that tend to have more month than money. And I
Yes.
think I think it could be just the opposite for that matter. The high income earner, don't you also want to know where your money goes? Look, if you could even just simply manage the subscriptions that are in your life, subscription to your movie streaming movie service, your subscription to your customer relationship management software, your subscription to email marketing, your subscription to all the things, you would discover if you simply kept a budget that there's probably 8 or 10 things on that subscription list that you could probably get rid of and not even miss because you haven't used it in months.
Yep. And here's I got to tell the story because people, I don't mean for people to think that I am perfect, because I'm far from it. And I can tell you, I was a high income earner on Wall Street, and I can tell you that, me included, along with a lot of my buddies on Wall Street, we didn't do budgets. We we had plenty of money. I had 6 kids, and I still had money.
Mm.
And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm punching myself in the head right now. If I had the money that I just wasted on things that didn't matter, that didn't build my best life, man, if I had that back right now, how much happier would I be? How much a better position would I be in today? I wish I had learned this earlier. So if you are out there, maybe you're in your 30s or 40s, you're getting into those high earner years, make that budget. Call me. I will help you make that budget. It's not handcuffs. It is freedom, and it's freedom to pay yourself. What is it that you want to be able to do? Do you want to retire earlier? Do you want to travel the world? And you got to be together. Here's the number one thing too. If you're married, you got to be together with your spouse. If one of you is a budgeter and the other one's not, guess what? Which one wins?
Makes it really hard. Makes it
The
really hard.
non-budgeter. Yeah.
Really hard. And you have arguments over finance when that is the case. Um,
It's like the number two reason for divorce: arguments over finances.
I totally believe that. And I also just want to really emphasize the fact that when you keep a budget, you are giving yourself permission to pay yourself first, because the first line item on my budget is how much am I paying me at the top of the month. Everything else is an expense after that. Pay yourself first. If you have a budget, it's easy for you to know, okay, based upon this income that I'm bringing in, I know I have this amount of money that I can pay myself. Then your budget takes over from there with everything else. You have to be in control of your budget rather than your budget being in control of you. And I think that it allows you to have the strength, and you're in a position of strength when you actually know where your money's going. When you keep your head in the sand and you have no idea, like, how did I get to the 20th and I'm out of money? I got 10 days left before I get my next check. You're really not, it doesn't mentally suit you from a power position. You're then struggling and you're working for the dollar rather than the dollar working for you. So just be aware of that, because while I don't set the world on fire from income, I've been able to save money every month for the last 50 years, 47 years of income. So it does put you in a position of power having a budget.
I have a guy who laid carpet, and laid carpet. At one point, he was divorced and lost basically everything in the divorce, and that was when he was in his 40s. And that's all he ever did was lay carpet. He has a couple $1,000,000. Actually, he's getting close to $3,000,000. And it's how you budget, how you pay yourself, pay your future self. And again, those high income earners tend to be the worst ones. Well, I don't need that budget, or it's too much trouble for me. Why would I budget if I don't need to?
Well, again, budget. I think that when somebody's perceiving it that way, John, I think that they think that budgeting means that your money is controlling you. It,
and
it
it's the
means that,
opposite.
and I don't want you to, as you're listening to this, just know that that is not the case. It is totally not the case. You have the ability to knowing where every cent that you're spending, or a big majority of the money that it's not, you can have a miscellaneous fund. It's $200 a month, miscellaneous. I don't know where that $200 went. Well, it was in the miscellaneous fund. It's okay to have that kind of category, but not knowing where your money is going is not wise, and it's not financially prudent for you to be there.
And I will say too that the biggest question and most common question I get when we start talking about budget, because I always talk about budget, no matter how much money you make, how much money you have, I always talk about budget when I'm speaking with clients. But what happens when I have a budget busting event? Because at my age, I've had those. I bet you've had a couple of
Mm-hmm.
those as well.
Sure.
And hey, it stinks, right? But part of this idea of budgeting in advance means that you're building up. I always tell people to have two emergency funds, one immediately available cash in your savings account. And that one should be, in my opinion, should be fairly small, but enough to cover you for maybe a month, maybe 2 months, depending on how you feel about things. And another one that is in shorter term, but highly liquid, working for you. So not like your savings account, which is probably costing you money due to inflation, but something that's beating inflation that is available to you within a couple days. And you have those two, and together, depending on how you feel about things and what makes you sleep at night is how big those are. And we can talk about that. But you will, I will, I don't say guarantee very often. I'm not going to say it now either. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to say that if you get to age 50 and you have not had a budget busting event, which is some major medical
I'm
expense or
lucky.
legal expense, you are not just lucky, you are a complete anomaly,
That is true.
and sometimes those can be thousands and thousands of dollars. I just had one client call me up, says he got a $3,000 car repair bill. I mean, that stuff happens, right?
I mean, I have not had one that has been fortunate. I've not had one that has been health related. But look, COVID itself, the pandemic was a budget busting event. It took my live events business to literally zero
Sure.
overnight,
It's a
and
great
that was
example.
something I wasn't even in control of. A pandemic, you're not in control of that.
Right. Oh, well, most of the time, budget busting events are not in your control. I mean, sometimes they're just a really dumb decision. I've made a few of those. But most of the time, they're not in your control. And a lot of times, the biggest reason for bankruptcy in the United States right now is medical. And that sometimes it doesn't matter if you have insurance. It can get so costly for, a cancer diagnosis or a major injury or something like that, that it's the most common form of bankruptcy is medical bankruptcy. I've actually helped counsel a couple people through that whole process, and it's tough. And it's another reason why, when you're younger, you feel like, well, I'm going to live forever. Okay. Baby, remember my name. Yeah. You know
John and I are
that
going
song?
out for karaoke a little bit later on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, you were just singing. You were just singing "Fame." I thought you were going to do the "Forever Young." Weren't you?
Oh yeah, that's another one. Yeah, that's another good one. But when you're 30, you're 40, you're feeling pretty good, and nothing's ever going to happen to me. I'm never going to have a car accident. I'm never going to get sick. Guess what? At some point in your life, you probably will. And that's why insurance matters. That's why emergency fund matters, and all that. And that's where the budget ties into those things. So that again, you're paying your future self, not just for retirement, but also those taxable accounts to have for maybe special projects or that emergency fund. And all of that is part of the budget. So having the budget is like one of the number one things you do.
Best place to start, as always, text the word life, LIFE, to 321-421-5213. That's how you get in touch with John and the team at Guardian Rock Wealth. Text the word life to 321-421-5213. This is a great topic because it's one of those that not diving too deep into the investment pool and not talking about, some of the philosophical things like crypto or where do we go? Where's WorldCoin or FedCoin gonna? This is practical stuff that will help you to get to build your better life. So I love talking about that stuff. John, thanks for sharing today. I appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom.
All right. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.